Kenan Thompson is one of the Emmy-winning cast members on SNL, and he just earned another Emmy nomination. There you go.
Boom, 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 boom.
Yeah. I'm Kevin Jacobsen of Gold Derby here with Kenan, and I have to ask, first off, I mean, you got your first nomination in 2017 for writing a song. You win the next year for another song, plus you get a nomination for acting, and now here you are again with, now that's 4 nominations, 1 win. Not a
That's
bad
it.
record.
That's pretty intense, man. But
Yeah.
thank you for that intro, man. That when you hear it out loud like that, God, that feels good.
Yeah. Well,
um,
what has it meant for you to just be getting all this love suddenly from your peers over the past few years?
love whenever it comes is, highly accepted. You know what I'm saying? So it feels great, of course. Like my first time actually going, I used to avoid, I guess, going to the Emmys, when I was more uncomfortable, like dressing up and stuff like that. I just felt like tight in tuxedos, you know what I mean? I didn't like it much. So I just would just be like, no, if I'm not personally nominated, then, you guys go have fun or whatever, blah, blah, blah. And I'll support from home. But once I personally started getting nominated, I was like, okay, well, now I have to go. And then I saw how big the room is in person, you know what I mean? But it's a room filled with every single person that I'm familiar with. You know what I mean? These are all like famous people that, I've been working for years, heroes of mine, but also like icons that are just like all commingling. And then I was able to like just witness what award shows are kind of really all about, and the fellowship of, artists celebrating each other. And I kind of started to get it. Like it wasn't about the trophies at all. You know what I mean? It was about the community kind of coming together and people being able to catch up with each other that probably don't get to see each other as often, because you have a wonderful relationship when you're shooting a movie, but then you don't get to work together again for the next 15 years, something weird. So this might be your chance of running back into somebody that you don't get to see because you're both very busy type stuff. And it was a room full of that, you know what I mean? Like a big giant room full of all these famous people just loving on each other. And that was incredible to see. So to take the stage in any form of that, was just incredible. And my first time going, Kate and I had to do that opening number together and like open the show. And then I ended up like, having to give the last award away that they told me about at the last minute. I'm like, yo, what is happening? Like I'm opening and closing the Emmys my first time going. You know what I mean? It was just a whole lot to deal with. And I felt, the pinch of losing, even though it was to, a guy who couldn't be the sweetest, a sweeter person, ever in the world. I don't think ever existed, Henry Winkler. From day one when I met him, he gave me a big hug. And I'm like, yo, we met on an animated show. Um, I think it was called, now I can't, it was called something with to do with school, but it was Mitch Hurwitz's show from Arrested Development.
Was that
And
Sit Down, Shut Up?
sit down, shut up. Thank you
Yeah.
very much. Very
Yeah.
good. So I was going to a voiceover for that, and it was just, some backlot, maybe Paramount or something. And I'm walking, and Henry Winkler's, I guess, just finishing his session. So he's walking towards his car. And like most of the time when two people pass each other, they just pass each other. But he, is a very present individual. So he looked me right in my face and was like, oh, Bobala, I love you. This, that, we never met. You know what I mean? And this is Henry Winkler talking to me like that. I'm like, yo, what? It just blew my mind. So I'm like, I never imagined that Fonz would be so sweet, you know what I mean? But he's just an older, little man now. And he just was, Mr. Sweater Vest and all hugs, you know what I'm saying? So it was truly amazing to meet him like that. So to lose, to him, it was just like that. That's not a loss at all. You know what I mean? To even be in the same conversation is a win. And that's the same W I'm taking this year. You know what I mean? Like it's an incredible category of super gifted artists, and to be in that conversation is, it's a win for me. So yeah, it's been an incredible kind of experience with this whole, the big side of the industry side of it starting to come around and pay attention to me. Yeah, it's crazy.
Well, this was a unique season of SNL where the live shows had to be cut short. The
Yeah.
last one I think was in March with Daniel Craig.
And it's so
Um,
crazy if you watch those good nights, like we had no idea. Everybody
right.
just having fun, hugging. Like we were, going into a 2 week break. So we're all like, man, thank you. We're, ready for a break. And, as soon as the break's over, we're gonna be right back. You know what I'm saying? So there's no reason to say goodbyes, like for real, for real. And everybody's just high-fiving, and it was crazy. And then shit got way too real like 4 days later.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, more than a 2 week break. Yeah.
Yeah.
But you guys had to do your last three shows from home. What were your kind of initial reactions and like the discussions you were having when you realized that you probably weren't going back to Studio 8H this season and that you'd have to adapt everything to this virtual setting?
I mean, it kind of all was happening so fast and all at the same time, as far as like what information is coming in, as far as like how to protect yourself. You know, are we able to move around? If we do move around, do we have to like, quarantine for however long? It was just a lot to deal with on top of, okay, well, work hasn't called yet. So, I'll deal with that when they call. And then they called and was like, all right, we're doing a show this week. And it's like, shit, how? Like, and we're very last minute anyway, so I was used to, all right, you're going to be getting FedExes and this, that, and the other, and we're sending you wardrobe and we're handling it, and everything just started swirling like it does, when we have a show that week. Like all these professionals come together and everybody does their thing, which always made me feel very comforted. It doesn't, I don't feel like I'm going out there swinging a giant bat by myself at any point. It's always a very, very big team effort, and it was never more reflective than those times, for sure.
Yeah. And the episode you're actually submitting to Emmy voters is the second at home episode, which we
Yeah,
saw the return of What Up With That. We saw Big Papi. We saw
yeah,
OJ Simpson. I mean, a lot of your highlights, really. So
yeah. It was
that's
a lot of heaters in that one.
yeah.
That's why I
Well, I
chose
wanted
it.
to talk about What Up With That. I mean, it's always a blast, but with this episode, obviously, it had to be virtual. Were there any kind of challenges with adapting that sketch with all those different players, just giving it the same energy as a live show?
Now, no, and that was kind of the beauty of it. Like the biggest hurdle was me staying on beat and in key, to the music. So I'm like, how are we going to figure that out over a Zoom recording where they're on the Zoom and I'm kind of recording on my two phones or whatever? They send us an extra like phone device to record with. So I'm like, I got two, angles going and like lights and like all this stuff. But I'm like, the music has to be in time. So I had my earbud, thank God, I finally caught up with technology as an old man. And I was like, well, if I'm just on a phone call with Eli, our music director, and he's just playing it on his phone, that'll be as real time kind of as it gets. So I'll be able to listen and sing without it bleeding into the audio on that we're recording on, because I'm only calling him from my phone as opposed to the Zoom, whatever the technical stuff was. And that was the biggest hurdle. Once I had that figured out, my whole thing, ringmaster and everything was, I think, the hardest part. And then we can, kind of spray paint everybody else in. DJ Khaled showed up and did his thing. Um, and, everybody, just, pitched in and contributed in such an awesome way. I hadn't done it in a while because my buddies all left the show. You know what I'm saying? So just kind of like out of respect, or just the want to do it with them kind of thing, I just avoided doing it. But this way, we could kind of semi get everybody back for it. So that was awesome. And Charles Barkley, my God, thank you,
Yeah.
Charles.
Well, the Big Poppy cooking show, very
Yeah,
interesting twist because we always see him behind the weekend update desk, and now you're
yeah,
kind of having to carry it as a sketch. I
yeah.
imagine maybe that might have been more of a challenge because it's not like you're bouncing off of someone really, and it's this new setting. What was that all like
It
to
was
film that?
interesting. It was interesting because it was like a lot of dialogue, so I wasn't really memorizing. I was kind of like, I had my it's like a teleprompter kind of app going on like an iPad, and like the distance where I could kind of see it and check in on where I was at. So I was just juggling a lot of balls, and I just was running through the dialogue, and I didn't really know how it was going to be when they put it all together. But thank God our director Oz Rodriguez is just impressively awesome, and he's Dominican, so he had just a special flavor that he added when he added the music to it. Added all these different like roll in things from the side, add graphics and stuff like that. It made it like a whole piece as opposed to just like me in my kitchen talking basically.
Yeah, and then we have the OJ Simpson sketch, which you've done before, and you're always kind of towing that line into darkness, I guess, which I
Yeah,
love.
yeah.
What is that like, though? Like when you and the writers, when you're doing a parody of a real life person and going as far as you can and sort of pushing the limits, but not going too far, that balance.
Yeah, I mean, I think that episode I is a favorite of mine as well because I wrote with kind of like my three favorite dudes, like me and Tucker, right? What's up with that? Along with our man Rob, but Rob departed the show, but um Big Poppy is written by Jost, one of the greatest writers that gave me my first sketch, Scared Straight, when we were sharing an office together because I was trying to figure out how to make Scared Straight into a sketch that has more legs than me just yelling at people. And he added in, the 80s movies references, and it just made it like a full piece as opposed to a one-sided thing. And he's just brilliant. So like whenever he's written for me or we've written together or whatever, it's always come out wonderful. And he's written all the Big Poppies for me. He's dope. And then Michael Che is just insanely incredibly funny, and he wrote the OJ thing, and we write Black Jeopardy together, like me, him, and it's Brian Tucker's idea, but when Brian and Che get together and walk that line together, it's impressively funny. So yeah, I just, that was a reflection of three of the dudes that I really work with a whole lot in one episode too. So it was a very special one.
Yeah, well, I'm wondering kind of in general, you've been in the business of television comedy for decades now, even dating all the way back to All That, which you're now executive producing the new version.
Yeah.
I'm curious just what changes you've noticed just since you were first starting out, as far as, what was funny then may not be as funny now, just the types of opportunities that are available now, and just how much things have changed in the industry, just what the landscape looks like now versus then.
Yeah, I mean, everything is completely different from, I would say, even 10 years ago, which is still in the 2000s, you know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
going back to the 90s, it's like, I'm sure you could, find a lot of things that are like, oh, well, maybe, but, you know, I've never done anything in malice, so it's always been kind of where everybody's mentality is at the time. Now everybody's waking up. You can't still kind of lean back on old habits just because you know that those habits tend to get a laugh. You know what I mean? Because if you're softening the blow on important issues, you might be undermining something, and things like that's not great just because it gets a laugh. So I'm trying to be very mindful of that, but yeah, it's a real minefield out there. Anybody's liable to step on something with the way they say something or whatever. But as long as people can, either apologize or clarify what they were trying to say and move on, and it's not done in a particular like fuck you sort of way, we should be able to be fine because there's bigger things going on than what a joke teller does, basically, I guess.
Yeah, it's probably a healthy attitude.
Yeah.
And so you got a lot of other things you're doing as well. You're also working on your new series, which is called Kenan.
Yeah. I
Groundbreaking.
had to reach hard for that one. Yeah, it's a hard reach.
Yes. Can you talk about just the development process of that and what kind of gave you the inspiration to make that leap?
I mean, that one has definitely been an ongoing experience. But yeah, I mean, I'm just so proud of the times. Like you said, we're Kel and I both are executive producing all that. And I think it's an awesome thing to be able to stay in the business long enough to have something come back around to where you can be involved on a different tier as opposed to like, okay, we're going to be like the older dudes in the cast because it's back now. You know, we can actually get on, you know, the business side of things and, you know, the behind the camera, you know, actual functionality, like for real adult version of being involved in the show is concerned. So that feels amazing, and it feels amazing that we're both able to do that together. He's definitely super hands-on because he's in California, so you know he's been on a number of episodes. You know what I mean, and I'm sure that feels good for the younglings to kind of feel better about having to fight against whatever legacy we put forth back when we were on the show. So I think these times are really great, but at the same time, it's very tough to build a show. And that's been my experience with my sitcoms. It's always changing, it's always evolving. When you think it's like, okay, you should probably go back to the drawing board because you want it to be like without a doubt. You know what I'm saying? It's like, oh, that was good. Like that's trash. You know what I'm saying? So you might as well throw it away. You're gonna find out in a couple of weeks or a couple of, you know, months down the road after they start testing what you feel just okay about, and it'll really let you know where the numbers are at. And then it's like, oh snap, we need to try to like aim for the heavens like every single time, every single idea, joke, possibility, whatever. So that's kind of been the experience. And then trying to figure out like what do we want to call the show, you know, and then like do I feel comfortable with it being my name? And it's like, okay, like yeah, fine, but you know, as long as everybody else feels good about it, like NBC and Lauren and, you know, Jackie and David Cass, my two awesome show creators and writers, um, and our director, you know, Ken Whittingham, who's done like almost every sitcom in the world, good buddy of mine. You know, that collective thought group, if as long as they're feeling good about it, then like I feel about it, and that's kind of like how, you know, most of it kind of went. Like, okay, we all sat down and watched the pilot in different versions. So like, which version do we mostly all gravitate towards? And that was the one that we were like, okay, well, let's just do this one. And it was like, okay, but it wasn't like a super home run because we would have just went straight into production probably. So NBC gave us time to kind of redevelop some things and go back and like check it out as opposed to the rush process of a pilot, because you're trying to basically set up a show that can hopefully run for season after season in 7 days, basically. You know what I mean? So it's a very rushed situation. So thank God they were able to give us the time to kind of develop it to where it's at, and you know, massage things like taking it from the Kenan show to just Kenan, and simplifying and adding, you know, awesome comedians around me as well. So it won't be just about me trying to be the head of everything, you know what I'm saying? And I'll be able to do what I do, and everybody will be able to too, and then people can love the show and not just like tune in just to see. You know, I've never wanted to be that guy where it's just like, this is mine and I'm the head dude in charge and you
Your
better
name
make
and
sure you
lights.
laugh at everything. Yeah, like
Yeah.
I've never been that guy.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
if it's, you know, an opportunity to get a show up and, you know, whatever, you know, I'm the tunnel that it's going to run through, then I'm all about that.
Hmm. Well, just in the final moments here, you also have a podcast that you started up
Yeah,
called You Already Know, that you started back in May.
that's
So
right.
I'm curious, just what made you want to jump into podcasting also, and, you know, talking about pop culture in particular?
Yeah, I mean, because it's one of those mediums that I kind of ignored for a long time, just like social media. And it was like, well, I don't even really know why I'm ignoring these things. You know what I'm saying? It just felt like it's going to become another job that I have to do, but I had to just switch my way of looking at it. You know what I mean? And you kind of just incorporate these things into your life because they're going to be incorporated one way or the other, whether it's people talking about things in conversations and you feel left out, or it's something you notice and you want to share, but you don't feel like you're sharing it enough quicker, you know, or quickly enough or whatever. And then you get to these platforms that allow you to scratch those itches, basically. And then you just wind up on Instagram anyway. You know what I'm saying? So you might as well just embrace it. And then podcasting was like, a buddy of mine was trying to tell me that I need to do a podcast because he thinks it would be funny to listen to me talk. And I'm like, I don't think so. Like, I don't think I talk that. I'm only talking like this now because we're talking and you're asking me questions. But in my normal life, I'm chill. You know what I'm saying? I'm just like watching TV or responding to what other people say. It's not like I'm actually like the showman. You know what I mean? So I was like, I don't really know about that. But then I went home and I was kicking it with my other buddy who does talk a lot. And whenever we start talking, we chat for hours. And I'm like, you should probably do a podcast. And he was like, nah, people have told me that, blah, 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 but I don't want to do it just by myself, blah, blah, blah. He was like, but let me sleep on it. Comes back the next day and he's like, okay, this is the plan. You and I are going to do a podcast and we're going to build this company and we're going to do it, blah, 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 blah. So that's kind of where we're at with that. And I was like, that makes total sense, because whenever we're just chilling, talking, especially if we start harping on movies or TV shows that we love, he's the behind the scenes guy that knows the writer or the DP or the director. And we start just talking about that sort of like framework stuff that has put out all the things that we love. So maybe like we feel like maybe if we investigate it far enough, when we start creating things, if we have the right team in place, we can make something incredible. You know what I mean? So it's those kind of conversations, and they come pretty easy to us. So we just started recording one, and now we're like 17 deep.
Now you're a podcaster.
Yeah, straight up. I
Yeah.
kind of dig it, because it's like we get to express ourselves, but also express ourselves very clearly, and it's coming directly from me. So there's no chance of like, misrepresentation of what I'm trying to say. And I'm
Right.
always able to clarify or do, a pickup or whatever. It's like, okay, well, let me clarify my point here, or add an apology. Like, okay, I was wrong. I was fucked up. Please forgive me. Luckily so far, knock on wood, I haven't had to do that. But,
Good.
it's been an awesome thing to kind of, unveil myself, because people only get to see me when I'm either on a talk show or on a show. Like I don't do a lot of at home material, basically.
Yeah, we get to see the real you. Well,
Yeah.
thank you so much, Kenan. Congrats again
Absolutely.
on another Emmy nomination.
Man, thank
Good
you
luck
very
with the
much.
virtual ceremony, which should be an adventure.
Yeah, I'm getting dressed up. I don't know about everybody else.
Yeah, good. Well, for those of you watching, hit like and subscribe for more Emmy season interviews, and head to goldderby.com to make your winner predictions.
Yeah.